Hello and welcome to Slanted Dice, an actual play Dungeons & Dragons podcast based on the 5th edition of D&D. We are a bunch of friends who just want to share their home game with the world and hope you might enjoy these hopefully weekly episodes of us fooling around at the game table. Since we have already started our home game quite some time ago, and our player characters are already fully invested in each other, as well as the homebrew world of Revelia, it's probably best to give you a little insight into what has happened so far, just to catch you up on where the characters currently are and what we know of the world of Revelia so far.
Let me tell you a story of great adventure, of powerful struggles between unnatural forces, of grand battles that shook the earth as we know it today, and of nobodies that suddenly became heroes. The world of Revelia is a magical place to exist, with history lost to ages past, ready to be uncovered by keen explorers, and a future which is yet to be weaved into time itself. There once was a primal age in our world. The arcane essence known today as magic was a common element of everyday life when the world was still young. Not much of it is known in this age, but what is certain is that the ebb and flow of magic allowed for an abundant variety of sentient creatures to be created, both defined by good and evil forces, tending one way or the other, or balancing their virtues and values as neutral beings. Primordial beasts and fairy creatures sprouted forth from the Feywild, a place where nature and the original arcane weave took on their purest of forms in its wilderness, flora, and fauna. But with light, there must also be shadow. The darkness formed more sinister creatures such as demons and fiends into the Feywild's mirror plane called the Fade, a dark and mysterious home to fog, shadows, and confusing dreamscapes where creatures would usually end up with their minds after their bodies were lost to sleep. Then came the Second Age, a song of war and betrayal. As time continued its unyielding journey, reaches of the Feywild and the Fade blended together into the world as we know it today, the prime material plane. Nature blended into more common creatures and beings, forming new races such as dwarves, humans, halflings, orcs, the new elven races, and more. Societies formed, and urban life as we know it today was born. Magic was bound to a more tangible essence, known as the Weave, and knowledge was amassed throughout the centuries. Great conflicts were fought among the races and other interest groups, and kingdoms rose and fell, one civilization crumbling before the next. Millennia of great battles were fought, and life and death became a fluctuating and uncertain virtue in an age of war. The common sense among the living creatures knew that magic was too powerful in its nature, and the only way to stop the everlasting conflicts was to shun it away from everyday life. Then, in the year 2979 of the Second Age, the everlasting war between the nations reached its climax and formed an event we today refer to simply as the Calamity, when the mightiest wizards and sorcerers came together with one goal: to bind the primordial magic to the Fade once and for all, shunning the arcane weave away from the material world where its power resulted in harm too great of a price to pay. The ritual being a success, all of the once mighty wizards and sorcerers paid the ultimate price and gave their lives, crumbling to ashes. All but one. As the last one standing, an archmage named Atrox the Wise heard a voice coming out from the grand portal they had opened to the Fade for the great binding. The voice of Eli, the greatest demon of his age. Although Atrox was the last one with magical abilities in this world, at this particular moment in time, he was weak and mortal and succumbed to the demon. He created an unbreakable pact with Eli and was rewarded with the unending power of magic within his soul grasp, siphoned from the realm of the Fade directly. The Hooded King, as we call him now, has since created his empire in Revelia, ruling over his subjects for nearly 300 years in this third age of our world. The king's lifeline took a turn, and instead of dying, his pact with Eli allowed him to stretch out his existence even further, always seeking the ways of old within the Fade to gain more power, and Eli's corrupted hold over this world growing stronger in return ever since. It was in the year 293 of the Third Age, when a seemingly unimportant dwarf of the name Gundren Rockseeker brought together his friends of old. A hill dwarf from Eastacre called Frion, a skilfing barbarian from the north going by the name of Branwulf, a reclusive dragonborn ranger by the name of Lucian, who arrived in Revelia just shortly, and a wood-elven druid known as Thiala. Meeting in the town of Highlock at a time of war after a dragonborn army invaded the South Shore lands of Revelia, the three followed the plea of their friend Gundren to secure the entrance of a hidden mine near the village of Fandalin before the Kingsmen would seize it in their grasp, as this mine held a promise of great power, an arcane forge for creating magical items. Successful in their task, but losing one of the Rockseeker brothers to the Kingsmen, Gundren thanked the party for their efforts and made sure the rebel group he was working for, called the Blackbirds, would secure the mine and prevent it from falling into the king's hands, or worse, to the new dragonborn invaders. With conflict tearing up the land and seeking a way to escape the war, the party headed north to the city of Horgrim's Gate to seek a sailing ship and leave the dangerous region for the time being. Meeting an old sailor called Captain Flesky along the way, he promised to help them in gathering a crew and would ask around his city contacts for a large sailing vessel. But upon their arrival, as fate would have it, the party found the Grand Harbor going into a full lockdown. The neighboring city of El Turel had vanished, being ripped from the soil by the Nine Hells themselves. With refugees flooding the city, the local guard of the Flaming Fist had their hands full with people in front of the city gates, and the local cult was using the chaos to strengthen their position within the city walls. The party, helping out where they could, took it upon them to bring some order to the city, meeting a new friend, a half-elven sorcerer called Kadair, along the way, but losing their dragonborn ranger in a terrible battle with local pirates. Uprooting the cult, the party rescued yet another victim of the local happenings. Blackwater, a halfling from the town of Saltmarsh on an island off the coast of Revelia and across the Azure Sea, called Dread Parish Isle. Finding out that the self-proclaimed Archduchess of Horgrim's Gate, Thalamra Vanthampur, was behind the attacks, as well as the vanishing of El Turel, acting upon the bidding of the Archdevil Zerial, the party struck her down in hopes of this leading to some peace for Horgrim's Gate. Cutting all previous ties, they managed to track down a sailing ship called the Endurance, and with a new crew aboard and an unknown horizon in front of them, they escaped the clutches of Revelia's war for now. And this, my dear listener, is where our story begins.